This is gonna be for the new players, and if you should play Tron and Liberty in 2025, more focus on the Hyperboost. It's not sponsored or affiliated. I am lucky, I have been playing Tron for almost a year, clocking over 3,000 hours on the game. I play mostly for the endgame PvP, but I also play the PvE. This video will talk about the situation of the game and if I recommend it for new players. With no affiliation to any sponsorship or partnership, so I'm going to talk about the goods and bads without no censorship. The topics will be pay to win, classes, combat, gameplay, progression, PvP, PvE, bugs, bots, cheaters, devs, and hyperboost. So to start, is the game pay to win? Yes, the game is pay to win, but free to play can compete. I have been playing many guilds, smaller, medium, big guilds like top guilds, the top guild on my server, and I can say I have been playing with many free to play players because you can reach a point that you can compete with any other player being free to play. So it's not that big of a deal for the pay to win, but it definitely helps by paying. So Lucent is the currency in this game that you can buy. With Lucent in the in-game shop, you can buy store mounts, cosmetics, battle passes, and level passes. Those will give some early boost, but nothing significant in the medium to long run of the game. And the Lucent can be spent is the main like coin used on the auction shop, which is the player shop, for buying and selling gear. That's how you can make Lucent as a free to play, just selling gear, and that's how you can pay to win by buying gear from using Lucent. Uh, Even though you can do that and you can get fully geared using your money, you still will need to do daily grinds to level up those gears and get other things that are necessary to progress your character. So you have to play the game even if you pay to win towards having the gear. That's why most of the people don't recommend paying for your gear because it's very expensive on start and the prices drops and everyone can, get up to the same place that you are. Uh, the Archboss's weapons are the most expensive items in the game, and they can be obtained decently easy with like guilds or if you have luck. And every PvP player that plays competitively usually have at least one or more. I know people that have like 4 Archboss weapons and are free to play after just a year. I myself have two, and I had the opportunity to have more, but I decided to split. I decided to help the other players that I had in my guild. But regardless, the other thing that you can it's kind of very pay to win right now is the legendary heroic traits, which is a thing that gives a small advantage over other players, but it's not that big of a deal. But it's something that I personally consider very pay to win due to the supply and demand on that thing, and that even guilds cannot help you progress faster on that. Um, Now let's talk a little bit about classes. So on the tier 1 on launch, we had 7 weapons. The classes in this game uses 2 different weapons. So we had 21 classes from 7 weapons. By that point now on tier 3 we're getting Orb and we got Spear around last year to this year. Uh, and now we are gonna have 9 weapons that leads to 36 classes. And we got leaked with Orb the Gauntlet that's probably gonna come sometime soon. And then we're gonna have 10 weapons, which is 45 classes. So as you can see, in around 1 year and 1 year and a little bit more, we are almost doubling, if more than doubling, the classes that we started. And that's something that is only going to increase over time because the more weapons, the more combinations of classes. So that's one of the benefits of the throne and one of the things that I like. The more classes there are added to the game, the more combinations that starts popping, the more of meta and things that start showing up until they become meta. A lot of things in the game change every time a new weapon drops because it changes compositions, change weapon combos, change like how the game is played, right? So I think it's a really good game for the game to stay fresh and for the game to stay interesting. So that's one of the systems of the classes and weapons. Right now we have longbow, dagger, crossbow, greatsword, staff, wounded tome, sword and shield, spear, and we are getting orb right now and gauntlet in the future. The combat is an action type of combat or a tab target type of combat. Choosing one will depend a lot on your playstyle, if you're on PC or you're on controller as well, or your class also can define like if you're gonna use a more tab target or more action system. You play with 12 skills that you can select out of 24 possible skills, Each weapon has 12 skills, so that's where the skills come from, the combination of the weapons, and you gotta choose 12 out of the 24. The same goes for the passives, you gotta choose 8 out of the 14, 7 for each weapon. Every class, every weapon have a different specialization and mastery tree. Those can affect your skills and like how they work, and the mastery tree can affect even your passives and what they do. We have active items such as the sequence stones, death and attack potions, health potions, and foods that affect the combat. We have directional attack that can affect your status in some skills. We have terrain that can affect your status if you're on low ground or high ground. We have climate that can affect the terrain in some skills. So some skills can do more damage on the rain or have different effects on the rain. And the terrain, for example, when it's raining, the lake can fill, for example, and then you can all, excuse me, walk there anymore. So it can change like how the battlefield works. You got active guardians, a bunch of them, and you can pick one, and each has a different unique effect. The same go for artifacts. You have one artifact that's an active and one passive, and you can pick them and does different things. And finally, everyone has a parry. On PvE, you'll be using mostly when there's a purple circle that's going to be indicating the time for a parry, the normal parry. And when there is a square, a purple square is going to be a dashing parry. In PvP, every weapon have their own parry that's going to have different effects if you do a standing parry or a dashing parry. That's mostly about it for the combat. When it comes to the gameplay of Tron, it's gonna depend a lot on what type of player you are, your play style. If you're more casual, if you're more competitive, if you're more focused on PvE or PvP. But the gameplay usually works around like daily tasks, dungeons, with the combination of schedule daily events that happens hourly, not hourly, but from time to time. There's a specific set of time for each server, region. Sorry, with the mix of like side quests and main quests depending on what point of the game you are, and limited time events that usually adds some extra content that you can do daily. A more casual player will just log in and probably do whatever is available for him during the time. A more competitive PvE player is gonna probably spend most of his time trying the hardest dungeons and raids in very specific groups or like groups that are already closed. Uh, and working their times around just the Peace, Feud, and Arc Bosses portals. And a more competitive PvP player will spend their time during Prime Time. Prime Time is basically a bunch of activities that happen during a specific time, mostly related to guild ZVZ slash PvP, right? Or like stones that you fight versus other guilds. Basically, a bunch of PvP content all packed up in a similar time. Most guilds that are PvP competitive operate around that time, and that's the schedule that you have daily for combat. So that's the gameplay they're gonna be following depending on what you do. Uh, Now, for the progression, the game progression for everyone is the same on the start, and it's just leveling and doing the main side story and the side quests. Once you reach level 55, you're gonna be. Meanwhile, also while grinding for 55, you're gonna need to do other things like daily dungeons, daily contracts, daily events, schedule events, abyssal and nebula farming, field bosses, and some other PvP or PvE content. All of that's gonna slowly make your character stronger with gear level, mastery, skills, equips, runes, artifacts. All of that's gonna slowly make your character grow in gear score. So you don't need to worry too much about it. There's some min-maxing that you can do, but the grind is limited by your daily resources, so everyone ends up in a very similar level to each other, which can be a thing that a lot of people don't like. But if you are a more normal to almost semi-competitive player, is a really good progression because it means you can still play the game, you still can progress with everyone else, you still can like play some PvP without being left too behind others, you know? So that's a good thing for the Hyperboost specifically as well. Now, when it comes to PvE, the content that we have is gonna be some part of the content for both PvP and PvE is gonna be locked behind milestones. Milestones is basically a roadmap that's gonna slowly unlock more and more content into the Hyperboost server. Uh, But what we should have by the end is going to be daily dungeons from tier 1 to tier 4, which is a 6-player dungeon. We're going to be getting open dungeon abyssal farming, solo dungeons with 3 difficulties, trials with which is the same thing as the daily dungeons but with harder and newer mechanics, nebula, which is a PvE and PvP zone, the daily events, like I said, scheduled daily events, guild incursion, which is basically a guild boss that you can do inside your guild, peace bosses, and finally raids, which are 12 players raids with 3 difficulties. Now for the PvP, the things that you have is open these dungeons at night, which means those open abyss dungeons, when it turns to night, they have they all turn into PvP zones. So you can have PvPs from small scale, like party versus party, to guild versus guild, to Zerg versus Zerg, which is alliance versus alliance. During those, the reason why fights happen is because in some specific locations during night there's chests that spawn, and those chests give you rewards that you can use to, like, progress on the game. So it's a very important thing, principally on the start of the game. Dominion boss portals, which is a thing that happens at the same time as the peace boss portals. It's gonna be like a PvP with randomized players, so it's not gonna be a GVG. It's gonna be like just random people on each team fighting a PvP match. There's gonna be the arena 6v6 and the new battleground, so it's gonna be 24 vs 24, which is small content. Those will give you some daily rewards, if I'm not mistaken, daily coins, arena coins that you can buy some gear and other things with it. That there's a daily event schedule for guild and dominion, which will also help your guild progress and give you some other things, but it's very similar to the PvE. There's the guild 36 to 48 boss portals, which is a GVG boss portal that happens basically. There's 2 guilds and there's a boss and they fight for the boss while having PvP on. There's Rift and Boonstones. Rift and Boonstones give you status if you control the Rift/Boonstone. Usually it's a thing that is scheduled, and then you end up like in a match versus a specific guild, and then both guilds fight, and the guild that wins controls the stone, and the stone can either give you like some status, which most, I think all of them actually do, but they can also give you a daily extra boss, so it's a very important resource, even more on the start of the game. There's the Inter-Rift and Boonstone, which is basically the same thing, but for example, 2 different servers, inter-server fight. If one server control this Rift Stone in this server, and the others control the Rift Stone in the other server, they can get matched and they will fight in an Inter-Rift Stone. There's the Arc Boss, which is an open field GVG. Is basically a mega boss that spawns in the world and everyone can get in there, but usually ends up being a more of a Zerg content, ZVZ. There's the Siege, which is a castle siege. It's basically whoever controls the castle have some buff benefits and get loosened from taxes on the end of the siege. It's a very fun content, mostly focused on, again, on the alliance, on the Zerg versus Zerg. Whoever controls that castle will also have inter-castle, inter-sieges, which is versus other castle owners. There's the tech siege, which is a golem, big golem that has to deliver tax from the main guild, the guild that controls the siege castle. You gotta go through a route to reach the castle, and then you gain some benefits, some loosen from that if you can do that. Versus the whole server, usually they don't win. Usually no one wins on that one. It's not really the best content, but that's the concept of it. And then there's Nebula PvP, which can be small to ZVZ, because the PvP there depends a lot if you're farming, if you're doing like one of the scheduled events on the Nebula Island, or if you are doing arc bosses or just field bosses there that does spawn daily as well. All of those have scheduled timers, so that's why I said prime time for PvP is very important, because most of the things I just said here always happen all together around 4 hours from each other, 4 to 5 hours from each other. So the PvP is always crammed in this prime time for the competitive guilds. Now let's talk a little bit about bugs, bots, and cheaters. One thing that you need to know is bugs happen often, and the quality assurance is really bad. Sometimes bugs take a long time to fix, and sometimes they are fixed quickly, but sometimes they don't fix properly. It's not ideal right now. That's what I'm trying to say. Bots exist, but I have seen much less bots than on Tier 1. I expect to still see bots because it's a free to play game, and they don't really affect that much the economy. Like, of course, there's people that will use bots to make money and sell RNT, Lucent, and stuff, but they really don't affect as much as you probably expect, at least in my opinion. And finally, there's the cheaters, which does exist. I have seen a few cheaters getting banned, but I also have seen many cheaters not getting banned. Cheaters are usually parry cheaters or target cheaters. Parry cheaters are just like they will insta parry certain skills based on the cheat. And the target cheaters are basically just always gonna target low HP targets or know what type of enemy they need to prioritize and target for you, things like that. So cheaters are still very annoying, and AGS did talk a little bit about it, so I hope they do something on tier 3, but that's all you need to know. Now, when it comes to devs, it's another important part. The devs are pretty communicative. They started doing some roundtable with creators, which was nice to keep the players informed. I actually appreciate the tries and like they try new things, like change the alliance from 4 guilds to 2 guilds was a big thing, and they have been trying new things. But I think the devs miss the mark very often when it comes to like what they are doing. I feel a lot of times they're pretty slow on feedback or they miss the mark entirely. Like when they release war games, it ended up being just a tool for guilds to fight other guilds and measure statistics. But I thought it would be a game mode. A lot of people thought it would be a game mode. Now they are launching the Battlegrounds 24 versus 24, but that's a thing a lot of people have been asking for like a year now. And I don't know if I'm happy with the 24 versus 24, but let's see what happens. It's a new game mode. When it comes to punishing cheaters, botters, bug abusers, they also miss the mark really often. Uh, a lot of times they either punish the wrong people or they punish the right people. But the punishment is kind of a joke. For example, people bought a bunch of Black Anvil weapons, which is a weapon that will give you some benefits on masteries and Solant, which is another type of currency in the game. And a lot of people that bought those things, just got banned for 3 to 7 days. If they even got banned and they got to keep their weapon, that was around 3 to 4 months ago. For example, me that have been playing legit, I literally don't even have the weapon yet because the grind for it is absurdly poorly implemented. It's terrible, honestly. It's an abomination, and that's the things that I think I really annoys me. The devs miss the mark a lot. They punish people in a very infrequent way. Like sometimes they punish people and they end up punishing innocent players and they have to go back. Sometimes they punish the right players, but the punishment is really bad or like so meaningless that everyone should have done the wrong thing because it's worth in the long run. For example, if I had bought it and got my Black Anvil weapon, I would have progressed 4 months with that benefit instead of not having that benefit for 3 days. But so you can see like there's a lot of things that are really frustrating to play a fair game, and I think it's something really important to keep in mind. People will bug and people will abuse and cheat and all of the things that you can imagine, even more on the PvP aspect. And the chance of they getting banned and punished are not very high. I hope to be wrong on tier 3, but it's been like on tier 1 and tier 2. On tier 2, they have been trying to be more aggressive on the fair play policy and the punishment of things, but I still think they miss the mark really heavily on a lot of things. So I hope tier 3 really changes like how these things are working right now. Uh, but that's about it. If you're watching this and there is a Hyperboost server, you are a new player, always play on the Hyperboost because everyone there's gonna be playing from a newer account, a fresh account. They're not gonna have everything level, arc bosses, and everything that you can imagine. It's gonna be a more beginner friendly server for sure and a more popular server. If you're playing and there's no more Hyperboost anymore, I would just suggest you try to pick a smaller server. I think your experience on smaller servers are gonna be better than on big servers because you're gonna have an easy time to like finding a guild that's more friendly and trying to grow your character and things like that. That's about it. Thank you for watching. I still think you should play Tron Unlimited. I forgot to talk about that because I think it's a free game. I think it's fun. It has definitely many flaws, but it has also a lot of good parts. The game is free, so you can literally just play for free and have no pressure other than spending your time. But if you're having fun, that's the whole point of like playing games, right? Uh, and if you don't like it, you're not paying anything, you didn't pay anything, you just, install and move on with your life, and that's totally alright. So I think it's definitely worth the try. I think the Hyperboost servers are gonna be mega fun, and definitely a new experience for a lot of people that didn't get to play the game on the start of the game. But that's about it. Thank you for watching. I hope this helped you somehow take an opinion on the game, and see ya.